So now, let's talk about the climate change. How does the climate also affect fish farmers?
Okay. Briefly, the fishermen are affected by climate change in many ways. I'll just talk about one or two.
Okay.
If you check the Lake Chad region, all right, those who are experts in climate change issues tell us that the lake is reducing in size. If a lake is reducing in size, that is the water body that is reducing in size. That's already a big constraint to capture fishery. Of course, there are times when certain climatic issue cause trouble for the water too. Maybe the temperature is high or whatever, and then spawning by whitefish becomes a bit problematic. Now, in the aquaculture domain, I think temperature also becomes a problem. If the temperature is too high, you may need to be changing water often. I'm not good with fish biology, but I know that I did a study on how temperature affects.
There was a neighbor of mine who just did, I think it was a pond he was building. He built it. After building it, he did the water connection on how to filter the pond, put water back into the pond, then went, got fingerlings, and the next morning, all the fingerlings were floating
Oh
up.
my God, they're dead.
They were all dead.
Okay.
None of them survived. They were floating up, and I was like, and there were about 100 fingerlings. And the first question I asked him was, have you done this before? Hello everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Primarald Open Insight. In our previous conversation, we talked about the Bielsa blue economy and its importance and opportunities. Well, today we are going to be diving deeper into this conversation, but another conversation. We are going to be talking about the Nigeria's fishery sector. With us today in the studio is our one and only Professor Onuche, who is going to help us unpack and talk more on the Nigeria's fishery sector. Professor, you're welcome once again.
Thank you very much, Primarald TV, for having me once again.
All right, let's not waste our time and let's go right into the conversation. Now we are going to start with the highlights. We would love you to highlight the position fish has in our lives as a people, because fish is a very staple thing in the lives of families, people in Nigeria, and it's something that is very important to our daily lives. We cook with it, we do a lot with fish. From your perspective, can you give us, how will I say, how significant is fish to us, the people, in terms of culture, nutrition, and even livelihood?
We eat food, and the classes of food, you talk of carbohydrate, protein, and the rest of them.
Yes.
When we come down to protein, we're looking at two basic sources: plant sources and animal sources.
Okay.
Fish happens to belong with the animal sources, Over 40 or thereabout percent of our animal protein intake in Nigeria is fish-based. And this is not without its explanation. Fish is cheaper on per kilogram basis than most animal meat form. All right. So fish becomes a very easily accessible component of animal protein for our teeming population. The Nigerian population is rising, and then you need to look for something cheap. So fish comes there. Again, fish has helped a lot of families to reduce poverty, not necessarily eliminate poverty. It has helped a few. Fish business, fish production, fishing, and fish-related businesses have been able to help a few persons to escape poverty.
Yeah.
But many persons to reduce the level of poverty. So fish is very important in our lives. It creates employment opportunities for us. It helps us in getting some money from other people outside the country. We'll talk about that later. So fish is very important to us as a people.
Okay, thank you very much. So, while I was going through this whole shoot, I was asking myself question. I've never really asked myself like what role fish has to play in our lives. If you realize anybody cooking in their houses, there's always fish. It might not be the actual fish, it might be crayfish. That's also fish.
Yes, part of fishery.
Okay, now my next question here is, what role does the fishery sector has to do with Nigeria's economy and food security today?
So you realize that the agricultural component of the Nigerian economy is split into crop production, livestock production, fisheries and related activities, and then forestry. Per agriculture, fisheries contribute about 4% of the agricultural GDP. That's the money, the total monetary value of what you have in the agricultural sector. 4% of it is from fish. But to the general economy, to the overall economy, fish contributes about 1% to the overall economy.
Why is that?
Yes, I think it's something that we'll have to discuss later. As enormous as the resources that we have are, I have not been able to make serious use of our fisheries resources, and it boils down to a number of constraining factors. We see the export-import component. All right, talking about the fishery sector and the Nigerian economy now, we see the international trade, the balance of trade is not in our favor. We import fish to the tune of about $1 billion. All right. And then we have to, what we get from export is just $90 million.
Wow.
So it's a very big drain on our foreign exchange. It's a serious problem for us, and it's something that we have to work on. But internally, fish comes with a huge prospect. For now, it's employing about 20 million Nigerians, both those who are capturing fish, those who are culturing it, and those who are involved in one or two activities around the fishery sector. Let me just explain that the fishery sector is broadly divided into two. There's the capture fish sector. That's the one you go into the wild to catch. Of course, we have talked about this before. And then there's also the culture fish sector, the one in which you raise fish in an enclosed
like a pond.
Yes. So that's how we get our fish in the country. For now, we are not doing too well. We are not producing up to 50% of what we need. So we are massively importing. We need up to 3.6 million metric ton. And we're producing just 1.4 million metric ton. It means we are importing 2.2 million metric ton. And that's a huge drain on our resources.
Okay. So you just mentioned that it's very odd to hear that we still import 1 billion worth of fish annually. I don't know, why is that with our large water resources and our growing demands? Why do we still need to import these things from other countries into our own country? What happened to our water resources?
That is a problem that we face in every other aspect of our lives in Nigeria. We have the resources, but we don't get to use them well. We have huge cache of fish in our water bodies, but we don't see people getting to catch them. We have enough of land, hectares, millions of hectares of land that could be put into aquaculture production. People are not involved with them. A lot of things. We can talk about a lot of constraints to our fisheries sector. It's sad enough that we have to import $1 billion worth of fish. That's a huge amount of money. A huge amount of money. Every year, that's what we spend. And with the growing population, if we don't get to improve on what we are doing at the moment, I have done a projection. If we continue the way we have been doing things, we'll continue to be dependent on foreign fishes for a long time. Unfortunately, the so-called foreign fishes are not foreign per se. They catch them in our international waters, bag them in the name of product of Chile. Imagine Chile selling fish to us. Look at the carton, those carton fish, the ice fish we eat. One is product of Chile. I asked my students to do an assignment for me to go snap the cartons. So we know where this fish is coming from. Well, and they were all surprised. Made in Vietnam, made in Chile, product of China, product of European Union, and so on and so forth. Later, we will want to discuss why it's that bad. But for now, it's bad that we are not able to use the resources available to us because we are not ready yet.
This whole fishery sector is a very a very broad topic. All right. So, Prof, now we are going to go down to the challenges the challenges facing the fish sector now. What challenges are we currently facing in the fish sector for both fish farming and the fishers?
All right, thank you very much. I'll start with the fishermen or the capture fish guys. Like we face in agriculture, the extractive logistics, the methods and materials that the fisher folks use to get fish from the water bodies, as the fishermen used to get fish from the water bodies, the methods and materials are still, let me say, crude, largely rudimentary, like more like our fathers and our uncles, and we too, sorry, using cutlasses and hoes to fish. So our fishermen are still using their traditional nets, dugout canoes, hooks, and baskets to catch fish. That is not the kind of fishing system that will sustain a population of 240 million people. There are a few attempts at sophisticated extraction methods anyway, but largely the 80%, the people that produce 80% of our captured fish, all right, they use these rudimentary, methods. And that's not going to get us anywhere. Number two is post-harvest losses. Some fishermen get overwhelmed, like one of my seniors, Professor Kia, tells me that some fishermen get so much fish that they come to the seaside and dig the soil and pour some inside.
Why?
Well, they have more than they can cope with, and then the distribution mechanism, the marketing, the transport system and all that is poor as well. Before you get these fish from year to year, something would have gone bad wrong with them. So they throw some of real fish away. Again, in processing fish, we get to lose some reasonable component of fish. And then when we keep some go bad because the storage component is also not effective, some go bad, and then we have to, lose a whole lot of fish, up to 30% or so of the fish we produce. Like in agriculture, 30% of what we produce in agriculture get lost after harvesting them. So that's one problem. So extractive mechanism, the logistic, and another is the marketing. All right, when the marketing system is not too favorable to the marketers, the fishermen will get the response, and then it's not too good. For instance, macroeconomic situations affect marketing. I think we'll talk about that later. When Buhari was in charge, sorry to call his name, late Buhari was in charge, we couldn't go out to buy as much fish as we want to get. But now the situation is a bit stable, So macroeconomic situations affect our demand, which affect the marketing of this. And then if it gets to affect the marketing, it's also going to affect the production. Another problem with the capture fish sector is the use of, bad means of extraction, means that are not sustainable. You cannot be using chemicals to catch fish. It's not fair.
Healthy.
It's not fair. Another one is the fact that we go beyond the maximum sustainable yield. We are not fishing sustainably. We catch all the fish. All right. You want to throw the young ones back into the river so that they get to grow and produce and become the fathers and mothers of that fish tomorrow. But you are afraid that if you threw them away, I would catch them down my own side, So there's no one complies with the regulations governing, fishing activity. So you can just catch anyone available, and then tomorrow your children are asking, why can't we get as much fish as grandma used to get? Your grandchildren will be asking that question. So we're not fishing sustainably. We use wrong means to catch fish, and then even the mesh size of our nets. All right, they're supposed to be big, but we almost go with the mosquito net to catch anything that we can catch. But we must also say that there are some fishes that at the maturity level, at the most matured level, they are still very small anyway. That's a caveat to that problem. Now we go to the problem confronting the fish farmer. Largely, aquaculture goes beyond just farming of fish. All right, so anything you can culture in water is aquaculture. All right, even weeds, seaweeds. All right, but when we say aquaculture, for the common man, we're talking about fish farming, and then the farming of the fish we know as tilapia, or the one you call point and kill, the Carias, Clarias, Garampinus, or Heterobranchus, Longiphilis, and then so that's the culture fish. It has the problem of culture fish is not related to sustainability, because you can produce as much as you want. It's not bound by any sustainability issue. But the problem you have with the culture fish is the fact that you need money, plenty money. All right, even if you are going to raise 100 of them in a small Dangote white diesel white tank, you will need some money to buy the feed, which is very costly. The most viable of the feeds are usually the imported ones from Israel or France. Because our own feed, which is another problem, the feed that the Nigerian man produces and tells you that the crude protein component is 17%. Our friends take them to the lab and investigate and find that it's not actually up to 17%. So if you are feeding your fish the Nigerian made feed, and I'm feeding mine with coupons, Israel or the one from France, there's going to be a difference. Yours will grow faster than mine. You ask, but the analysis on the paper, on the label of the fish bags tells you that all is well, that the two of them are equal. Now that's the problem. So you're going to need plenty money to buy fish feed. Again, you need money to run the water. You may need to sink a borehole. Then you get your pond or your tarpaulin or your plastic pond, or you dig, you sink, whichever it is that you are, going to use. Then there's also the cost of the fingerlings.
Yeah, the babies.
The baby fish that you need to catch, buy from somewhere. You can't catch from the wild because it's not viable. You have to buy from people, and the cost is also high. Apart from the cost being high, how certified, how reliable, how certified is the person you are going to buy that baby fish from? That is another problem we have there. So we have problem with the cost of the feed, the cost of creating the environment to raise them, the cost of the fingerlings themselves. Another problem is with the skills.
On how to take care of them.
Not everybody can stand up and begin to want to raise fish. Another problem is related to the first one we talked about, marketing, evacuation. You see, in 2017, I was at a conference in South Africa, and Nigerians there were complaining of how to keep their fish in the pond sustained. That was the Buhari era. Before Buhari came, it was Jonathan. With Jonathan, there was money everywhere. Anybody could go and point and kill and take something. But when Buhari came, the macroeconomic environment began to affect the marketing of fish. Not many people could buy fish anymore. And so it got the supply of fish for those years depressed. So evacuation, marketing, the skills, the cost of feed, the quality of feed, the cost of fingerlings, and the cost of putting up a structure to raise these fish is a big problem for us in aquaculture.
That's quite a lot. I can remember when there was a neighbor of mine who just I think it was a pond he was building. He built it. After building it, he did the water connection on how to filter the pond, put water back into the pond, then got fingerlings, and the next morning, all the fingerlings were floating up.
Oh my God, they're dead.
They were all dead. None of them survived. They were floating up, and I was like, and there were about 100 fingerlings. And the first question I asked him was, have you done this before? That was my first question to him. And he was like, no, I just watched the video. He told us how to put it, the water, the salts. He was saying a lot, but
in starting that kind of a thing, you need an expert.
Exactly.
I think it's good that he started with 100. My first attempt was 100, and I didn't do badly. I was able to raise 95 of them to.
That's beautiful.
But there was always one expert. Don't just go to YouTube. get a human being who has been doing it.
Exactly.
Go join him on his farm, then invite him to help guide you all this. Just a small thing. Maybe he was supposed to have, if he had used a concrete pond, he was supposed to have put in some potash to detoxify something. If it was plastic, put some oil around the plastic. But there's a way you detoxify the something, or the quality of the water he brought in, and so on and so forth. Somehow he didn't get that right. But you need an expert if you are not skilled in it. Yeah.
Exactly. So now let's talk about the climate change. How does the climate also affect fish farmers and also the fishers?
Okay. Briefly, the fishermen are affected by climate change in many ways. I'll just talk about one or two.
Okay.
If you check the Lake Chad region, all right, those who are experts in climate change issues tell us that the lake is reducing in size. If a lake is reducing in size, that is the water body there is reducing in size. That's already a big constraint to capture fisheries. Of course, there are times when certain climatic issue cause trouble for the water too. Maybe the temperature is high or whatever, and then breeding by wild fish spawning by wild fish becomes a bit problematic. Now, in the aquaculture domain, I think temperature also becomes a problem. If the temperature is too high, you may need to be changing water often. I'm not good with fish biology, but I know that I did a study on how temperature affects that, and it was negatively related to production. You need to be changing your water more frequently, and it's going to cost you more money. But if there is flooding, like we have seen in Delta states and parts of Bayelsa state, of course, owing to climate change, you will lose your ponds and all the fish you have in them. Yes. I was teaching somewhere and I showed them pictures of ponds that have been overrun by flood. Yeah. So that these are very simple ways that we see the impact of climate change on fish production. But sometimes flooding brings so much fish for us in capture fish, right?
Yes, for the people who go to the river to catch their fish.
Yes. Flood brings so much water, so much, but it's more destructive than it is. It's more
helpful.
Destructive than it is helpful. Yes. Climate change. Yes.
Thank you very much. So this will take us down to our last question for the challenges. So many fishers, many communities struggle with storage, especially people in the rural areas, people in those hidden communities, but they have good fish. They struggle with storage, bad roads, also struggle with how to keep this fish viable for them to bring them into the community for people to buy. Now, how does this affect the fish sector? Because when consumers are going now to get these fishes, they're getting it at a very high rate. May I even tell you, this fish that comes from the fishermen from the river, after they fished from the river and they've brought it down to, let's use Bayelsa for instance, they go into a community in Bayelsa, they're done. Let's use the capital, which is the Yenagua now. After they've gone to the deep community to get the fish and they bring it down to Yenagua, the fish becomes very expensive. Very, very expensive. Now, how do we work on that?
So you talked about storage. And there is some huge economics. Of course, post-harvest losses get to come up. You see some of them throwing fish away. Some of the fish is going bad. But thank God that we now have solar power, and then we can help them with some small cold rooms. But this is the economics of not having good storage. If you do not have a good storage system, you are going to push in so much fish to the market. At a particular point in time. If you can't store them, you have to bring them to the market. And now I'm in the market now and I'm seeing plenty of fish. And you, the seller, you are not seeing plenty buyer. You know the price is going to fall. I know that if you have to take the fish back home, you are going to lose them. And so I will now go down the pricing lane, and then I win. at that point. And then
because you just have to sell.
Yes, you have to sell, so you lose. But that is bad for the nation. It's bad because the producer of this fish next year or next time, he's not going to catch much fish anymore. Because he knows that if he catches more fish, he's going to run into trouble. Let's say the person is a rational person now. That's the assumption now. Okay. He's not going to sell well because he sold the last one at a loss. All right. So he's going to get little fish. By the time he brings little fish to the market next year, the consumers are not going to have enough fish to buy. So the fish producer this time around takes the price up, right? The price goes up, and then the consumers begin to cry. And as the price goes up, the producers say, "Oh, the price of fish is good now." Other producers come in to help produce the next season, and then they come in with plenty fish into the market because there's no storage. Price falls again. The farmer is sad, the consumer, and so this thing continues. But the government can come in a way to smoothen out these distortions by helping us raise cold rooms so we can store the fish so that you have even supply of fish all year round, so that the price is so that the producer is happy, and then
consumer is also happy.
The consumer is also happy. That is one. Now we talked about road network. That is a huge problem. It's going to, of course, if road network becomes a problem in a particular area, like we have in southern Niger and then in some parts of or other parts of the southern part of the country, what is going to happen is whoever is able to get to southern Niger to buy fish and brings to Yenagoa or Port Harcourt is going to sell at a very high price, which is not fair on the consumer. Of course, the man who went to southern Niger will have to factor in his own economic margins and all that. And so that is a problem. Then the other problem is other infrastructure like electricity. You don't have electricity, you can't store, and so you lose some fish. And these are the problems that we have affecting the fishery sector in that light. But did I forget to add insecurity?
Yeah.
You know, I have a friend here whose mother goes to southern Niger to buy fish, two of them. The mothers go to southern Niger, and then they say on the high sea, is it high sea now, on the water body, some men come with guns to rob them. Sea pirates.
Yeah.
So insecurity is a problem. And then there's this northern part of the country, is it Bama or Bagana, right, in Borno State, that was once captured when Jonathan was in power. Boko Haram captured, is it Baga or Bama? Baga is the fish headquarters of that area. Yes, insecurity. When the Boko Haram guys took over that place, of course, they caused a lot of havoc there, destroyed the place, burnt it to the ground. I know what that does to our fisheries economy as well. So insecurity is also a problem. So infrastructure deficits, these are big problems. Lack of cold rooms, these are big problems, and so on and so forth for our fisheries. And it is hoped that the government will wake up and begin to do something reasonable about all these issues.
All right. Finally, we're going into the solution and the future of fisheries sector. Well, the first question to you, Professor Onuche, is what are the governments doing about it? What are the people in leadership doing about the fishery sector to make it better in our country? To help us stop importing $1 billion worth of fish annually from other countries and grow our economy. What are they doing about it?
So the administrative part of fisheries started as a small component of the Ministry of Agriculture in the 50s and 60s. And then along the line, around the 80s, it became a bigger body called Federal Department of Fisheries. As of today, President Tinubu has established the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy, which like we said that time, the last time, has replicated for the state. Now, this is a form of development, and then fisheries constitute a huge chunk of that ministry. So it tells you that there is a concentrated effort. There's a concentration of effort in that domain. But to help that policy work, you have to infuse a number of ideas beyond the papers. We need to begin to see things happen. Now, when we talk about our capture fisheries being overexploited, If we're able to go deep into the ocean beyond 50%, there's a huge body of fishes there, tuna fish.
Yeah, I've heard of that,
yes.
But I've never tasted
We have not been able to catch them beyond just 5%. Yes, tuna fish. So there's a huge amount of fish underneath you, just 50 meters into the ocean. What are we going to do? Other people catch them and sell them to us. So what are we going to do? The government needs to come up with how to go about extracting those fish. And that will have to be by way of enabling private investors. That is one. We talked about the problem of security. That is, we talked about insecurity. The soldiers are doing something about that, both sea pirates, that is within the government power to do. But I also believe in community efforts too, because it's the community members that can identify who the criminals are.
Yeah.
Even in northern Nigeria, as we speak, there's a joint task force. All right, those can help the military deal with the situation. When we talk of infrastructure, we can't say more than the government should put in more efforts in rehabilitating our infrastructure and extending them. Gladly, the present governor of our state is doing well in that regard. I think. Yeah. I'm not going political, but I can see that roads are getting to places that before now you didn't have roads. So that is fine. That will reduce the problem. That will reduce the impact of the problems we talked about earlier, and to smoothing out a number of gray areas. Then we go into electricity, which will help us store the fish. Apart from electricity, a cold room, all right, which we can now get by harvesting some energy from the sun, solar panel. That is, you can help women set up these small cold rooms, all right, so they can store their fish for a longer period of time instead of throwing them away or getting them wasted. Number two, you can help them with smoking cane. Right, a sophisticated one. So it's not as small. It's not just small anymore. You give them something big so that they can smoke their fish. When we get to the other aspects of fish, that's the capture aspect of fish. How is government going to help the fish farmer? Is government now going to think of inspecting and licensing hatcheries? So government officials will go to check if the hatcheries are doing well, so that we can have viable fingerlings. Are we going to have a set of scientists looking at our local feed materials? Why NAFDAC and other scientists are checking to know whether or not the feed components being quoted by feed producers is good enough, all right, so as to ensure quality in local fish production? Are we not going to think about how our local scientists can look inwards, all right? Some of our kitchen waste and all that, look at some plants and some animal parts and see how we can substitute for the costly things we use in the production of fish, because 60 to 70% of this production, the cost of this production is based on the feed. All right, is government going to help us with some money so that anybody who wants to start a fish business can be able to build their ponds and all that? These are areas that government can come in, identify serious-minded people and help them set up fish farm.
Okay.
Reduce cost of production for them. Get into researches to see how you can reduce feeding costs, and put up cold rooms for us, extend the road networks, and so on and so forth. Defend our farmers so they can produce well.
Okay. Yeah. So these are all the things you've mentioned, right? Are there any new initiative or new invention coming out to support fish farming, particularly in our country, Nigeria?
Now there's the recirculatory aquaculture system that helps you to manage your water. I'm not an expert in that area, but it's a new thing. Other new things that we can look at is feed production.
Yeah.
Yes. So we can come up with newer ideas that can help us develop cheaper feed components.
For now, there are no initiatives for that.
For now, I cannot think of any innovation being applied in the country. And even when we talk of capture fisheries, there are AI innovation that relates with artificial intelligence that can help you map the parts of the sea. All right, you can have it as a fish hotels. That's inside the sea. The app can help you locate a fish hotel, a part of the ocean where you have a huge catch of fish, so that if you launch into the deep at that point in time, you are going to get plenty
something
of fish.
to detect.
Yes. Something to detect when you have plenty fish. Something to detect where the current is going and the temperature of this and that and all that. These are innovations. But again, it will take a well-spirited public management individual, like our politicians. It will take serious ones to see how they can help our fishermen and our fish producers get some of these things.
So we have so many young people out there who are thinking to get into the fish business. And what is your advice for them?
I mentioned earlier that fish has helped to eliminate poverty for some few persons, but for many other actors in the fish industry, it has only helped to reduce their poverty. But the fishery resources we have at our disposal is such that we could use them to escape poverty and even create prosperity. Not many people have been able to create prosperity out of fish. For the young man, for the young woman going into fish farming, this is what I have to tell you. Don't be too fast. Start with a step at a time, 100 fingerlings, and then don't put the whole of your hope in it yet. While you are doing that, have some other things to do. As you do some other things alongside, the next time you can increase to 300-400 fish. The next time you can increase until you are sure that fish can help you. Don't leave every other thing for fish. Start small, pray well. Yes, pray well. Have a focus. Don't give up. I believe that the government that we have on board now is creating an environment that cannot be truncated the way Jonathan's environment got truncated. So I'm not looking at the macroeconomic indices getting depressed to a point of depressing the fish producer. All right. So with hope, with consistency, and with prayers, we can get there. But start small and grow up gradually.
Another thing is to know how to do this business before jumping into it, or get somebody smarter than you.
Yes, if you are going to start it, make sure to get an expert to help you. Exactly. The expert might ask for some money, but then it's better than getting to sink all your money to something you do not know much about.
Okay, Professor, one last question for you. Do you prefer fish to beef?
Yes, so in Bios I do much of fish. Because I have this notion that I should contribute to the economy of the people I stay with. And if I do fish, it's not carton fish. Yes, it's a fish from the river.
The river fish.
Yes. But we read that the fish is a healthier form of animal protein than beef. Yes, fish is healthier than beef. It is also cheaper. 1 kilogram of fish will not be as costly as 1 kilogram of beef. Yes, and that's why Nigerians consume it more. That's one of the reasons, apart from the fact that it's part of our culture. It's cheaper, it's healthier, all right, safer.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof, for sharing your knowledge with us. And we've come to learn that the fish sector is not just about fish. It's about growing our economy, having a secured job, and helping ourselves grow, and even involving ourselves to the growth of our community, of our states, and of our country. So guys, we've come to the end of today's Open Insights. We hope you've learned a lot, and we would see you in our next episode. My name is Deborah Igberi. Stay inspired, stay informed, and see you later. Bye.